Welcome to episode 33 of our deep dive into Heaven's Vault. We're headed off to the ancient library. Once again, we had this situation where the intro sequence to the game didn't bother to actually give us any details as to what we are supposed to be doing or how we're supposed to be doing it. It talked about the find we found that was impossibly far off in the distance. But it didn't talk about the, I guess we'll go to the left because there's more unknowns that way. But it didn't talk about...
The rivers of the nebula flow to Iox in the end. If you tie off your sail, Iox is where you'll wash up. It's the heart of the nebula. Or else, it's the gutter.
Anyway, as I was saying, the intro sequence is supposed to remind you of what you've done and what you're trying to do, get you excited after your time away. But this intro sequence really doesn't bother, and I wonder why. It doesn't seem like it would have been too hard to code. It just tells me that I found out that there's something impossibly far away. It doesn't tell me how to find the next step towards that or what to do. It just is like, oh yeah, you found something that's really far away, and that's it. You found out that there's something too far away to reach, and I guess that's all we're gonna tell you. Come on, make me excited. Tell me what my next step is. Tell me that it's too far away to reach, but, you know, maybe I can find something in the ancient library, which is where we're going right now. So I'm following Enkai's instructions again. She told me to go right, so that's the direction I'm going. And it's the reason I chose to go this way in the first place, because I saw some unexplored rivers, and I knew Enkai might have an opinion on the matter. These ancient rivers, they must be ancient, because she hasn't been awake since the founding of Iox. These ancient rivers are an interesting idea. I wish you could make a whole game out of just this part of the game. And I think it would be interesting to map rivers and try and figure out where things go and why things go the way they do. I think it would be fun to talk about how the rivers have changed and to try and find places where the rivers no longer reach where they once did, and maybe you can find a way to walk to where the rivers once flowed. These are fun ideas for, you know, an excavation game. There's always a lot of fun to be had being inspired by things in games that didn't end up quite the way that you would have expected or didn't go quite as far as you would have gone. Obviously, everybody's got different visions and different constraints, and I certainly don't say, oh, they made their game wrong because it's not about exploring waterways and making maps. I'm just saying that I think it would have been quite a fun game if it was about exploring waterways and making maps, because that's kind of something I like doing, and there's not really very many games about it. I was thinking more about the context engine that I'm building to show off this test. To show off that you can do some things here that they didn't do in this game. And I've been thinking about how to make it viable, how to make it something that you can write, because you have to be able to write these games. If you can't write them easily, then no one will ever be able to make them. And this is an example. This game took so much work to make. And if they had a tool, I think it would have been, a more advanced tool with better visualization. I think it would have been interesting. It would be easier for them. But the problem, of course, is that these tools have to be custom made for the exact kind of context engine that you are referring to, the exact kind of game you want to play. There's no such thing as just one universal context engine, because it's all about the kinds of stories that you're going to tell, the kinds of information that you're going to pass, what kinds of differences there's going to be, based on what kinds of choices the player makes. In the end, however, There are a couple of basic features, a couple of basic facts that all context engines will have. And it's right there in the name. It's an engine of contexts. So you're going to have to be able to define some sort of progression, like a story, a bit of a story. And then you're going to have to be able to navigate along them. The player is going to be able to choose which bits of story to navigate on next, at least to some extent, and how to engage with those contexts, at least to some extent. And I've been thinking about a way to make a flexible but easy to make example for that. And the hard part is, of course, I'm saying things like, oh, look, you can make a wonderful story, a very compelling story with none of the holes and none of the emotional sideways, stuff that didn't work out. And here is my example. Don't you agree that my example is an awesome story that's perfect in every way? And it's hard to get around that. It's like, I'm not going to be able to live up to the ideals that I have in my head for just an example story, but it's fun to think about. And I was thinking about the kinds of operations the player is going to be able to perform. And, there are a couple of basics. Choosing whether to go one place or another is basically choosing which contexts to pursue. In addition, there might be situations where you're allowed to choose whether or not to give someone information or give someone something. And that might change what sort of ways different contexts manifest. And it could be something simple. It could be just that stats change. You tell someone, you give someone gold and their stats go up. It could also be something like the system changes what kinds of enemies or allies are on a given location. So if you tell the space police about the pirate base, then they will show up at the pirate base. So when you visit, you'll have an easier time of it. But of course, you're going to be able to get away with less because there's cops everywhere now. And so those are basically, the idea is that they can choose which contexts to engage with. This is a different color river. That's interesting. They can choose which contexts to engage with, and they can also choose which contexts should go in what directions. So it's not just a matter of choosing when to engage and when not to engage. It's a matter of choosing how things proceed in general. But here's the thing about that is that it's an illusion, because the contexts are going to be contexts. And if you choose whether to engage with one versus choosing to make one go left versus right, those are the same choice. You're choosing to engage with a context that is the rightwards path of a context, as opposed to the leftwards path of the context. It's the exact same action as choosing to engage with the context in the first place. So that got me to thinking about, what parts need to be scripted, what parts can be generated. And it's fun to kind of ride that line and figure out what parts the UI has to support to help you write your story. And so that's what I've been thinking about in this long weekend where I didn't do any playing of this game. That's why there's been a couple of days where I didn't get anything done. I mean, it's not a particularly popular adventure. I'm doing it because I know there is something more going on. I know that there is something I want to see that hasn't been seen, and that's something I'm pursuing mostly for my own edification. I don't expect the rest of the world to care much about this playthrough. What am I missing? A do? That can't be right. Well, I mean, this can't be right. This is nonsense. I guess we'll let it winnow it down for us. Of course there's no do. That must mean I missed something. Well, let's go ahead and just put it together in a different pattern then. That's a suspicious one. Let's leave that. This one's pretty solid. This one's pretty solid. So what have we got here? We've got a buy. No? Seriously? I mean, if that's under, then this is definitely buy, right? And now we're back where we started, right? Oh, this time it worked? No. I was right. Under is suspicious. There's no under. But the rest of this... Alright, so I'm pretty sure this is fire. pretty sure this is buy. It's pretty distinctive. This must be listens. It's pretty distinctive. And this must be and, because there's no other options. Why is there a than? I guess it could be something here besides buy. Yeah. No listens, really. Okay. In that case, buy is probably it, and is definitely it. Fire. Buy, fire, and something. Alright. A couple of distinctive words were, in fact, probably just concatenated words, and they count as one word here. So this is do not go down, so that would be sit by the fire and read me, shout me, return me, angry me, read to me. That can't be read. It's fine, we'll figure it out. Sit by the fire and read to me. Hooray, it's made where we're looking for. So if we take a look at the map, you can usually see what's going on. It's down here, so these are outputs. We definitely don't want to make any accidental lefts, because that'll take us on a really obnoxious loop. So we'll try and hang mostly rights if given the option. Okay. Well, hold on. This is actually a right. Let's ignore her. This is the first time I'm ignoring... Okay, this was the wrong way. Darn. Alright, well, let's see whether we can get some more loot. Nope, no loot. Wah, wah. I have a bad feeling about this. Yeah, we screwed up. How did we screw up? What's going on here? Huh. It might be all the way down here. Well, this is not going to be very interesting. I can continue to talk. I'm sort of thinking about the kinds of contexts that I would like to try and write for the example story. And there were a bunch, but there was really only one that seems to have the pieces I want to show off. The combination of emotional and statistical pieces that I want to show off. And... and that would be like a Mass Effect game. I might just make a Mass Effect fan story. Because, really, that's interesting. Because it's a situation where there's a lot of people who are, you know, there's an emotional context to those people, not just in terms of dating games, but in terms of them being connected to the larger world. So, the basic premise is that you can get a lot of the emotional connections that I would like. I want to make sure that the stories in the game connect and have an emotional context, because that's the only way that I can show that you can power that with a context engine, by just understanding where the crossover points are, where the bridges are between the contexts, and then you just have the game engine push certain contexts more than others to make sure that those arrive at the same time. And then, of course, there is also the conflict of that game, where you're chasing people around, and there's like enemy ships and stuff. And there's a lot of, well, I mean, left definitely doesn't, so we're gonna go right. And there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of factions that you can. There's a lot of factions that you can manipulate and talk to. Just as an example, the very basic faction would be the council, who you have a rocky relationship with right from the start. Imagine if in a context-driven game you were allowed to tell the council a different amount. You're allowed to either show them or hide from them things that you had found, and that would change, not their opinion of you, but where the council sticks its nose. And in turn, you could tweak exactly which places have how much council presence. Not council presence, but official presence from the major races. So that's something where I think that kind of setting would be very easy to turn into a two-pronged game, where you can show off the statistical stuff, the auto-generated stuff, and you can also show off the emotional stuff that needs to be hand-scripted. And of course, that the ability for you to give out facts is very similar to the way that facts are collected in this game. So it shows you that sort of thing works on a smaller scale, at a different way. So Enkai is super impressed with our ship, and we don't know who built it. We should be coming up. What we're going to do is, as soon as we get close enough to land... I missed the turning. Alright, let's go back then. As soon as we get close enough to land, I will... Oh, I just misread the arrows? No, that's definitely there. I will actually stop and start again, because this whole episode has been us on a river, which is not too bad. It's a nice thing to get back into the concept of the game and talk about what I am trying to do. But obviously, if you're here to see a Let's Play of this game, then it's going to be a disappointment, because it's not really a Let's Play of the game. It's a Let's Play of the concepts behind the game. All right, see you soon.